coming. My name is Jen Hager. I'm the town's Planning and Economic Development Director with the town of Sutton. And I'm fortunate to be the project lead on our Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Project, which involves studying the hydrology, and Matthew can, and hydrology, all the terms he can get into in a few minutes, of in and around the village of Manchaug, to kind of look at where things are going right, where things are going wrong, and how we can improve the overall system and make sure we're resilient as we go into the future with the changing climate and just the march of time, basically. So first off, I just wanted to thank the Dunleavys who own Manchaug Mill for giving us this space and being awesome partners in everything we do down here in the village, so thank you very much. And I wanted to also thank Sunshine Sign, who donated our great banners for notification, and Sutton Highway, who's probably not here, and who kind of help us schlep everything everywhere. So I just wanted to make those thank yous. We do have some representatives from various agencies that are integral to the study we're doing here in the room. So I'm going to just introduce the few people I know who are here. If I forget anybody, A, I apologize. B, please let me know you're here. So we have Hillary King, first and foremost. She is our regional rep in the MVP program with the state, resilientmass.org. Google it. So, this is Hillary King. So she's our point person with the state on this whole project, and great to have her. We have Phyllis Charpentier from the Manchaug Pond Foundation. Thank you very much for being here, Phyllis. Stephanie Cavino with the Blackstone Watershed Collaboration. Ted Beauvais with the, he's the president of the Blackstone River Watershed Association. Yep, got to make sure I get the phrases right. And we have James Rubino with Mass DOT. They're the guys that own Main Street. And all the good and bad about drainage along Main Street. It's not all his fault. So, tonight with us we have our consultants on the project. We have Matt Dunn. Matt is with PAR Engineering. He's the guy that made those great packets for you, and he's the science guy. So he's going to explain everything in the package and how it works. And we also have our public facilitation and graphics consultants from Travers Landscape Architecture, Art Eddie, and Stephen in the back of the room there. So thank you guys. And with us from my team tonight is our communications director, Pam Nichols, who is filming the meeting in the middle of the back of the room. So for presenters and those who want to speak in the meeting, if you could just speak out when you speak so we can capture this all clearly on camera, and then this will be filmed and available on the town's website and our YouTube channel after the fact if you need to review something or you want to share with other people. So, we also have several MVP team members, Paul Maynard, Robin Dresser, who's my other MVP team members? Do I have a few more in there? Oh, yep, Lee Dillard Adams. Who else is around? Matt. Who? What? Matt? No? Matt? No? Okay, yeah. That's not here right now. So, thank you all for being here. And with no further ado, I'm going to get you to the interesting part of the meeting. Let's first, did I forget anybody from any of our partner organizations? That's amazing. So, with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Dunn, who is going to run you through what's in your handouts. And then as soon as he's going through everything, I'll pop back in and just kind of overview what we'd love to learn from you tonight. Okay? So, take it over, Matt.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly because, as Jen said, the most important thing is what from all of you, which is where we're at right now.
Talk a little louder, Matt, please.
Okay.
Could you tell us where your company is located?
Yep, so I'm Matthew Dunn from PAR Corporation. We have offices in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and Foxborough, Mass. I'm out of the Foxborough, Mass office. We're a 130-person engineering firm, so we're mid-size, and we do specialize in this type of work, this type of planning, H&H and planning stuff. So Jen just kicked us off. What I'm going to do in hopefully 10, 15 minutes is just run through the general scope of the study, followed by presenting all the supporting figures, which is the thick packet there. So starting off is just the general scope of the study. In one sentence, it's a planning study for the Mumford River and Dark Brook watersheds and the river corridor itself, with particular focus on the Manchaug Village area, and all the flooding issues that have happened in that area. So right now we're at this step here, the listening session, just to garner as much feedback as we can from all of you. You guys know the problem more than anybody else, so we really appreciate the feedback. We can take that feedback and tailor our scope to best suit the needs of the community. So after this listening session, and we've kind of already started, some of it is this first step, which is hydrologic and hydraulic analysis of the existing conditions within the watershed. So your existing culverts, your existing dams, everything that's out there right now, we model and we determine what the flooding conditions are for all recurrent storm events. So your recurrent storm events are your 1-year storm and your 1,000-year storm. So just to put it into context, the 1-year storm is about 2.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour span, whereas the 1,000-year storm is, my memory serves me, about 11 inches of rain in a 24 hours. So a pretty big range of all the storms that are possible. And I'll get more into the actual nitty-gritty of H&H in our next meeting, the problem meeting there, where I'll go over all the results of the H&H analysis, what it means for the community. But just step by step here, data collection we actually completed out in September. I don't know if you saw a couple of people in vests popping around. That was us. From that, we'll develop a HydroCAD model, which I actually have a graphic of that I'll show you along with this packet. And that's of the entire watershed, not just the area of flooding concern. That's everything that contributes to these rivers. From there, I'll develop the HECRAS model, which is your hydraulic model. That's going to tell you that's going to predict the flooding in the areas of the rivers. Well, as I said, we're going to run all the storm events, 1 year through 1,000 year, and we're also going to run it with using existing rainfall data as well as the buzzword climate change informed predicted future rainfall data. And from there, we'll review and refine the model. This is a step that I wanted to highlight. We're going to review and refine the model based upon what you all tell us as to what you've observed in flooding in this area. Once the analysis is complete and we're happy with it, we dive into the results. We identify the structures that are vulnerable to flood damage. We take a look at all the hydraulic structures within our model, and we look at their hydraulic performance. Some that are specific to this watershed. We have 6 dams that piqued our interest right from the start. We'll be looking at each 6 of these. And then I think upwards of 11 road crossings, if you count all of only 6 roads, but Manchaug Road has 4 crossings between Dark Brook and the Mumford River. There's other things that we'll be looking at. I know beaver dams are pretty prevalent within this watershed, so we'll be looking at those. There's also several former dams. There's one, I don't know if I'm mixing up the mill site numbering. Is the one furthest upstream mill site 1? This is 1. So the dam that's up there is 2, and the one upstream is 3. All right. So this packet is wrong. It refers to that as mill site 1, but up at mill site number 3. And then there's also one upstream of Putnam Hill Road between Upper Tucker Dam and Putnam Hill Road, where a beaver dam is formed there. We're also going to look at just general river and floodplain performance, not necessarily in between the culverts, where there's just the river and the floodplain. We'll be looking at that. And it's not just the river and the flooding, we'll also be looking at the watershed characteristics. So what type of land cover do we have? Do we have forest? Do we have impervious areas? You'll see from the graphics, which we'll get into, this watershed is pretty undeveloped, which is really good for what we're talking about here. It's a lot of forest, which is great. It absorbs the water and it results in less runoff. From there, we'll have our problem meeting, which again, I'll dive into the H&H results. We'll talk about the problem areas, we'll garner your feedback as to, okay, that's not really a problem area, this is a problem area. And then we'll dive into, after the problem meeting, we're gonna dive into developing and evaluating potential alternatives. And I kind of put together a list of 9 here. So there's the structure flood proofing, which is at the individual structure, is wet and dry flood proofing, which again, I'm gonna talk about it probably at the end of the problem meeting and the beginning of the solution meeting with different types of alternatives. Structure flood proofing, dam modifications, you have 6 dams in the water, 6 dams of interest in the watershed. You know, there may be modifications that help the flooding issues. Dam removals, there's a couple dams that I think could be eligible for removal, but I'm sure that avenue is awfully difficult. Roadway crossing replacements, I think this is a big one, you'll see quite a few of those. Just general river and floodplain restoration, so there may be portions of the river that can be modified so that they can absorb that rain, that runoff, and result in lower surface elevations. Kind of beaver dams, yeah, these two kind of fall hand in hand for this particular watershed. There's a lot of beaver dams, a lot of beaver activity on these rivers. So certainly a beaver maintenance program is probably one outcome of what's going to come from this as a potential solution. Land cover preservation is big. The land cover in this watershed is excellent. It's predominantly forest. That's the best you can ask for. What?
Just louder.
Oh, okay, sorry. And then infiltration improvement. There's certainly areas where I bet there's some big parking lots in this watershed that could benefit from some type of drain infrastructure system. And there may be areas of the watershed where we could improve attenuation. So flood attenuation is kind of what this Manchaug Pond Dam and Stevens Pond Dam do right now. They take in a lot of rain, stop it, and only let out a little bit of flow, so the downstream area is not seeing as much as what Manchaug Pond is seeing. From there, we'll have our solutions meeting, which will present all the alternatives, garner your feedback, cross some stuff off the list, bolster other areas that you guys are interested in, and then we'll go ahead and close it with a summary report, followed by a closing meeting. So that's generally it for the scope. I know I did a lot. I'll be going over pretty much everything again as part of the problem meeting, but are there any questions on that before we blaze through the information on that? Yes.
White's Reservoir also drains into the Manchaug area, also by on Douglas Road. So there's a lot of water coming from White's Reservoir into the Manchaug.
Yes. Yep. Whitney Reservoir is a big one. Yep.
So you figure that in probably Manchaug,
I think it is. I think Whitman's is 9 square miles and it's Whiten's is 9 square miles and Stevens and Manchaug are about 6 square miles. So yeah, it's big enough. All right. So are there any other questions? We can always fire away as we continue on here. But let's just kind of go through this informational packet. First page is page 2 of 30. It's just a base map. It's your overall map. Nothing really fancy on it. Just showing the aerial, showing the town lines. Map number 3 is just the same map as map number 1, and it shows the main river lines which we sketched in there based upon topography. Map number 4, the same thing as map number 3, only includes these how we've broken up the watershed. So we have the Manchaug Pond and Stevens Pond watershed in blue. There's the Dark Brook watershed right here in kind of an orange. I'm bad at colors, but kind of an orange. And then there's what we call the Mumford River Manchaug Village watershed, which is kind of in between everything else. It's just a direct contribution to the river. And then there's this Whiten's Reservoir watershed right over here. And then just everything downstream of that contributes directly to the Mumford River.
So the Dark Brook watershed, what is that?
The Dark Brook, so Mumford River starts up here, kind of comes through here, and turns. And Dark Brook is this big tributary here. It kind of runs along Putnam Hill Road.
Doesn't that come up above Mendon Road?
No,
comes up.
Yes.
Way up top, yeah, above the golf course and stuff, way up there.
Yes, exactly, yep.
So that goes from Tucker Lake.
That goes through Tucker Lake.
Yes, yes.
Goes through Tucker, goes through Putnam Hill Road into Tucker Lake, and then through Putnam Hill Road again,
Yep.
and then through Putnam Hill Road again.
And then down back to the swamp, down in Manchaug.
Goes through mill site number 3,
Yep.
right?
Where at one time there were 3 dams on that watershed, and 3 dams, 2 collapsed because of floods.
Really? I know that, I saw one, we'll get into that.
One is where the fire station is, another one is where the pumping station is across the street where you talked about, that was the earth that collapsed. And the one where the fire station that collapsed with the floods, the earth.
It was floods that
Yeah.
caused the flood.
That's
Really? Okay. Interesting. I thought maybe they were physically removed. So,
Yeah.
So you just need a really good example of the kind of information we're looking for from you. You live here, a lot of you have been here for a long time, you have nuggets of awesome information like that. So where you know where those dams were, hopefully you can take a few minutes at the end of the meeting and take little sticky dots
Well, there's also.
and put them on our,
Tucker Hill.
right, so you can mark those on the maps and write a little note, what you know about it on our maps, and then that will go directly to Matthew and his team, so they can incorporate this kind of knowledge
Cody Lane.
into the
Yeah.
study.
That's Upper Tucker.
That's right.
So there's 2 Upper Tucker, and you just skip over that.
And I think they put the spillway in there, the water going onto the road because of the flooding. At one time, when I was a kid, and my father was in the water, they opened that.
Oh, really?
But I don't think it's been opened since.
Yeah.
But one of our neighbors opened some puppy pond on a regular basis in the spring to put the water.
That's on the river road.
Yeah, that's the
But
one
that-
that goes.
But that's just on Cody Lane, there was one, they used to swim there, off the dam.
So they do,
It's a big granite installation, it's a cross by Cody Lane's there. Swimming around there, it's a big granite piece, what's that, it was a
Well, one time, the area near Cody Lane, we used to call it Sandy Beach, and because of the flooding, that wiped it out. So the water came right through there at one time.
Let's make sure we capture those comments at the end of the meeting. If you can make sure you come on over and visit, and I'm happy to help you write that information down, so we can make sure we include that in the study, everything you know about that area. Matthew, do you want to keep walking through the presentation?
Sure.
We're definitely interested.
All right, so page 5 is the same thing as page 4, only it adds how we subdivided each drainage basin. So you can see this blue, this big blue Manchaug Pond, Stevens Pond watershed, we subdivided into 7 different watersheds to kind of give us more refinement for the model. Dark Brook, we really went crazy. I think we had subdivided this into 15 different sections. Right, this is what we've done to date for the H&H, which again, I'm going to dive into, that's a lot of numbers. I'm going to dive into this more at the problem meeting. But
Matt,
just,
what's this H and H mean again? What's the difference between the two terms?
great question. So H&H stands for hydrology and hydraulics. Hydrology is rainfall and how that rainfall interacts with the ground based upon, what your land cover is and what your soils are below your land cover. So land cover, you can kind of see it here. It's based upon land cover, and it's based upon soils. So your good land covers are your forest, your shrubs, your grass, which is most of this watershed. You guys are lucky. And then you get, so if you think about an impervious area like a parking lot, if a parking lot sees 12 inches of rain, that's going to run off 12 inches of rain into your brook. Whereas if a forest sees 12 inches of rain in a good sandy soil, that could absorb up to 6 to 7 inches of rain before you see any runoff from your brook. So that's kind of the idea behind hydrology and why you want to help preserve land cover and maybe even convert some impervious areas to pervious areas. And so that's hydrology. Hydraulics is the river flow. That's when, okay, we've already figured out what amount of the rain is going to run off into the river, what's going to happen to all the runoff.
So does hydraulics also involve kind of underground pipes, like stormwater pipes and drainage, that's also within the watershed, and how that affects all of the natural flow
Yeah.
of water as well?
You could separate it out if you want, it's all part of the same cake. You know, so what I like to use the terminology is riverine hydraulics, which is kind of what this study is focused on. And then there's storm drainage hydraulics, which is your catch basins and your 12-inch pipes that dump into the river. All right, so this is that HydroCAD model I was talking about where, you know, all of those individuals, if you go back to them, so all of these 20 subbasins are each put into this HydroCAD model with all these, with all these parameters, the size, the base flow, the time of concentration, the curve number, all of that information goes into a nice pretty model here. And that gets routed through what we call hydraulic structures. So you can see subbasin A is routed to that number 1 pond dam with upstream end of the watershed. All of this funnels down to Manchaug pond here, number 8. So that's the pond in the dam itself. Same thing, Stevens Pond. Here's the upper Tucker Pond here. And that's kind of tells you what goes into the model in terms of rainfall. So this is the current rainfall data, the 1-year storm, 2,000-year storm. Now, I'm going to explain all, I don't want to spend too much time on this, because this is next meeting's presentation. But I do want to touch on recurrence interval, because not everybody knows what recurrence interval is. So a 100-year storm does not mean that it's going to happen once every 100 years. It means that it has a 1 in 100 chance of happening any year. So it has a 0.01%. Yeah, a 1% chance of happening any given year. Common misconception, you can get 300-year storms in a 5-year time. And just to touch it, this is what we're using for climate change informed rainfall data, so you can see a 100-year storm that now has 8 inches of rain. You use the climate change informed rainfall data set, that same 100-year storm becomes an 11-inch rain event. I like to also make the jump from, okay, a current 100-year storm becomes a future 25 years. So your larger storms are happening more often. This is a picture of the, sorry to flip it on it, it's the only way it could fit. North is up here. So this is a picture of our hydraulic model, which is going to tell us the flooding information. So this is Manchaug Pond here, Stevens Pond here. Just because they're not within the hydraulic, so this outer line here is the hydraulic model limits, right here. So anything within there, we're going to get detailed flood data for all these storms and be able to kind of look at alternatives there. One thing I want to point out is just because Stevens Pond and Manchaug Pond are located outside of that area, doesn't mean we're not going to be looking at options for those ponds. We can use our HydroCAD model to help us inform. So the HydroCAD model includes everything. The hydraulic model is only focused on where we're interested in riverine flooding, which is your dark brook, and then coming from Stevens Pond and all of the Mulford River, going right down through Potter Road. So this is kind of a zoomed in, so we're on page 9 here. This is kind of a zoomed in image of where the most development is within our hydraulic model. So this is Putnam Hill Road here. This is Dark Brook, that kind of comes through Putnam Hill Road, through Upper Tucker Pond, where it then Tucker Pond has 2 outlets, like this gentleman was referring to. One being the spillway, that's where most of the flow goes. There's also an embankment here, which is just a low-level outlet that someone needs to operate, which is this gentleman described. So it splits there. This is where that former dam and that beaver dam that we were talking about, that's where that is. And then it goes under Putnam Hill Road again. Kind of comes down. That's all dark brook right there. And then it joins with what's coming out of Stevens Pond, which is the Mumford River, and also joins and becomes the Mumford River. And that kind of comes through, goes through mill site number 3, through Manchaug Road, through Manchaug Road again. Everything's called Manchaug Road in this area. Through where we are right now, I think we're sitting right there, and goes kind of through here and downstream. This is where that big Whitens Reservoir tributary comes in under Manchaug Road, and then comes through Potter Road, Dam, and Bridge, and it keeps going downstream. So this, I just want to highlight, in this legend here, I kind of identified everything that we identified as points of interest in the first page, in the outline. We've identified on the map here, and we've also included after this map, I believe. We have some pictures from our data collection work of each location. So what we did is we went through all the dams, all 6 dams, and then we went through all 11 road crossings, and then 2 of the probably 5 beaver dam locations that are in the watershed. So this is Upper Tucker Pond Spillway. How are we doing on time, Jen?
We're good.
Okay. Upper Tucker Pond, there's the east dam, which is on Manchaug Road, and it's pretty much just comprised of this, which is the spillway. And then there's the south dam, which I'll show you first. But that's the east dam spillway, the upstream end right here. So this is the pond. The water spills over this and goes out underneath Manchaug Road, and that's the downstream end of it. So the water comes and flows that way. This is the south dam. These aren't very good pictures of the south dam, but this is the dam embankment, and this is that low area. Is that low area we were talking about that washed out over here?
Yes.
Yeah. So this probably does fall during a decent storm event.
That's on
No,
Tucker Lake.
It doesn't. Oh.
It's too high.
It's where there's a trailer there. It's been,
Yeah.
that's where it was. That's where the water went out. And what they did was they put in huge boulders across the road on the other side, which, prevented it for a long time, but, water.
This is Manchaug Pond Dam, upstream face here. This is the spillway at Manchaug Pond Dam. This is Stevens Pond Dam. Stevens Pond Dam we didn't really have the best access to, so I apologize for the photos. But this is the spillway at Stevens Pond Dam. This is just right in the spillway, looking left. There's the dam embankment. Manchaug Road is right over here. This is that mill site number 2 dam. So this is down. This is in between the 2 Manchaug Road crossings on the.
That's one of the spots they should clean out.
Yeah.
Because you got all that vegetation that catches everything.
Yeah.
And that's what causes one of the floods too.
Okay.
And some of the guys that were doing the surveying, they were cutting branches, walking up the river, just leaving them.
Oh, really?
My grandson and I walked up river, pulling them all out, because it was catching all the leaves and flooding.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, right, got it.
it's all the vegetation, you gotta clean the pathway, so it can flow. And repairing a few of the dams would help too,
Yeah.
especially Stevens.
Yeah. This is Potter Road Dam. This is a very downstream one to the model. It's not much of a dam, but it does create this 3-foot deep impoundment
Is there a spillway on the side where you can lower the water?
at Potter Dam. So it is,
And I know it's
Just-
falls, but
right.
it's on the right of, if you're facing it, you're going over the bridge, over the falls, over the bridge there. It's right on the other side.
To the right-hand corner.
is a pipe.
Oh, there's a little spillway that comes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Little low flow still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to this dam over here.
The height of the water like 3 feet.
Yeah.
That way, you would lower the water table in Manchaug over a period of time.
Yeah, getting into, not really dam removal, but dam lowering. That's a great way to reduce
Well, plus
flood levels.
control.
Yeah.
You got a storm coming, 2 inches of rain, go drop the ponds a couple inches.
Right.
That's it. It's just control and having someone to do it and monitor these things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This, in the falls, you know, the river should be bridged, really, because there could be beavers down in the middle of this, preventing water from going to Gray's Pond.
I don't want to truncate any of these great ideas. Our next meeting is all about solutions. And this meeting, we really want to kind of focus on the work they've done to date and learn all that kind of base information, which you gentlemen in particular and you back in the back of the room have talked about kind of the history and what you've seen in the structures. And then at the next meeting, they're going to bring some solutions and hear your solutions as well, and we're going to hash it all out. So I don't want to truncate any of that potential solution discussion, but we're going to get in depth on that in the next meeting.
2 meetings from now. Next meeting is the problem meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, next meeting is the problem meeting, yes, where your comment is perfect. But, yeah, so keep all those solutions in mind, and tonight we want to make sure, after we get done reviewing what your initial information is, that we work really hard with you, and I'm here to help you and our MVP team really document all that stuff you know about dams that maybe aren't indicated on here or aren't shown on the maps that are gone now, and how they washed out in a flood or a hurricane. The areas of the river you've noted are getting jammed up with growth and overgrowth. Our fire department did an amazing video that I think I've transmitted to you, but I'll make sure you have. They did an amazing aerial survey of the Mumford River and showed their spots where there's things like large decaying deers jamming up the river.
For years.
And those are the kind of things we're trying to gather that information from you tonight. That's the focus of the meeting tonight. So we're going to be, after Matthew is done reviewing his presentation, then we're going to gather everything you know about existing conditions or the history on our maps over here or in notes that the team's going to take from you. And then the next meeting we'll discuss in detail the problems that they've uncovered through what you've told them and what they've studied. I don't know if that's a weird sign or not. Problems, I've only done that. And then that final meeting before the presentation of the final study will be, here's some solutions. What do you think about these solutions? Or do you have more solution ideas?
There's a lot, there's a lot.
Yeah, so
Well,
there's 3 meetings, and then once we all do all of our work and we're all part of this amazing study, then we'll present it at the end when it's in a big package. So tonight, like I said, I don't want to truncate any of the kind of the solution discussion, but we want to focus on getting that base information and everything you know about history and kind of the existing conditions on the record tonight, so we can all move forward as well.
So on that note, I am going to put out 2 of these last couple of pictures so we can get to that in words of art. So this is Sutton Falls Pond Dam, which is just upstream of Manchaug Pond. So and now we're getting into roads. This is Putnam Hill Road 1.1, we numbered it. This is the one that's just upstream of Upper Tucker Pond. It's an 8-foot box or 8-foot bridge. Putnam Hill Road 2 is the one that's downstream of Upper Tucker Pond Dam. It's the one downstream of that former dam and that beaver dam. This is actually over a 4-foot box. Just downstream of that one is Tucker Lane, which is a bridge, I think it's a 20-foot span bridge.
Yeah, that's our bridge. There's the crossover right above that where it comes under a culvert under the road. That's the one the beavers dam up there.
Putnam Hill Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is Dark Brook. Now the beavers have discovered, I think they just looked across the road, hey, there's already a pond there, so now they built a lodge against my property and are taking down all my trees. But at any rate, right there where that bridge is, Dark Brook not only comes downhill, if you're looking downhill to the left of it, and comes under that culvert, but the water comes rushing downhill, coming down the right side of the road, fills up the swamp area, and then washes out Tucker Pond Road, or Tucker Road,
Goes over the road.
right on the inroad side of the bridge there. And all that water comes right over it and washes it out, so.
It definitely seems gummed up, is the term. Looking at Tucker Lane and looking upstream, that the river certainly seems debris filled. This is Manchaug Road 3.1, which is the one just downstream of Stevens Pond Dam. Fit 16-foot by 5-foot arch culvert. This is Manchaug Road 3.2, which is the one that's kind of after Mumford River and Dark Brook join. They kind of go through mill site number 3 and go underneath this road. This bottom picture is a view from that dam, that mill site number 2 dam, looking upstream at that bridge, the 43-foot bridge. Manchaug Road 3.3 is the one that's downstream of mill site dam number 2. This is a 40-foot span bridge.
Isn't that Main Street?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Is that what
right,
it's
yeah.
called?
That's Main Street.
One down here, too.
Yeah.
It turns into Manchaug Road and Douglas.
does.
That's probably the confusion on your part.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll rename that Main Street. That'll avoid confusion. Main Street. All right, this is Manchaug, is this Main Street? This is the one.
Yeah,
where-
that's all behind it, right there.
Yeah, this is the one where the.
The bottom one?
That's this side of this one,
Yeah, this side. And then that's out back behind the
Main
mill.
Street.
This is the one where Whiten's Reservoir Dam and its river
Okay.
join the Mumford River.
Douglas Road. Yeah. Manchaug Road.
Whitten's, this is Whitten's Road, which is right over here. I don't know if that's called Whitten's Road. White, I get the name. I'm from out of town.
Yeah.
This is Whiten's Road culvert. It's a pretty small, 2.5-foot culvert. And the lower picture there is the 20-foot bridge that goes under Potter Road, 20 feet downstream of the Potter Road dam. This is, that top picture there is a picture of one of the beaver dams at mill site number 3. It's about a 3-foot high beaver dam. 2 pictures of it, there's the same beaver dam. This picture here, I'm sorry I don't have a very good picture of the beaver dam, but you can kind of see it in there. This is actually a 6-foot high beaver dam that's in between Upper Tucker. If you go back to the main map, that's too far. But I'll show you on the main map. In between Upper Tucker Pond Dam and the second Putnam Hill Road crossing is this beaver dam here. I think also at an old dam embankment that was breached.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't want to put too much focus on this. This is our preliminary model results. We wanted to present it to garner some feedback, to get some feedback from you all that, hey, that's not really a flood area. This is a flood area that you're missing here. These are preliminary results. Our goal is to take the feedback that we hear tonight, refine the model to better match what you guys have seen. I will tell you that it's a large range of events here. So this red shade is sunny day, so no baseball. It's what's happening in the river right now. Whereas the blue shade is the 1,000-year storm under climate change informed rainfall. So that's an 18-inch rain event. So that kind of gives you a sense as to what it is our initial models are telling us. And there's a couple, this is a kind of a zoomed out view of it. That's the Upper Tucker Pond area. This is the Manchaug Center or Manchaug North area. And this is the kind of towards the downstream limits of the model. This is the Potter Road Dam. And that's it. That's it from me. So now the important part.
First, Sarah from CMRPC was nice enough not to call out that I forgot her. So we have Sarah Plotnicki from CMRPC. She's a resiliency planner, actually, with Central Mass Regional Planning. So she's here with us tonight as well as part of our team. And so I apologize for leaving you out. So, all occasions tonight. The main focus of tonight is to show you what the consultants have gathered for information to date, to kind of show you their initial hydrology model, which Matthew just pointed out, which shows in shades from red, which actually is kind of now current conditions on a great day, through that light blue color, which is your 1,000-year storm under climate change, what areas might be flooded, based on all the input he's put into the model to date. What we want to know is you have the most up-to-date information. You have the most on-the-ground knowledge of what's really going on right here in all of those sub-watersheds that he showed you on some of those front maps that contribute to what happens on the ground here in terms of water issues, flooding, ponding, large velocity flows that can wash things out and the like. So what we want to do tonight is gather anything and everything you know that from, oh, there used to be those 2 dams there that I don't see on this map, if you could kind of tell us where those were, or I see some potential flooding here. There's already happening in this area that's not shown on the map, so we can kind of say, hey, there's flooding here that I don't see. The potential for flooding on your map, I've seen it. It happens once a year, or I've seen it 10 times in the last few years. Anything like that that you can add to the knowledge base, because adding that information will make a better, more accurate study. The whole point of this whole process is to really get a thorough understanding of what's happening with the natural and man-made water systems, how it's all coming together, how weather affects everything, how potential climate change will affect everything, and to plan ahead and use any number of means, from dam adjustments to improving flood storage areas, or making sure we're not eliminating impervious or not putting impervious in critical storage areas, so that we're all in a better place 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. And we'll use this study as a base for not just future municipal funding through our budget, but to also apply for other grant and assistance resources through the state and federal government, and any number of foundations to carry out some of this work. So the results of this study it's really important that they be as accurate as possible and as informed as possible. So that's why we're all glad you're here. So what I have over on the side tables is just a base map of kind of the village center. And there's little sticky dots, and there's little post-it notes, and there's pens, some of which actually work. Sorry, they're dollar store pens. I try not to spend a lot of town money on things. So, if you can, if you have input to add, we'd love to help you, or for you to indicate on the map areas where you've seen flooding or ponding, where you want to make sure we've gotten those structures on the maps. And myself, Pam, Lee Dillard-Adams will be kind of around the tables if you just want to just share some thoughts with us about things you remember flooding as a kid, or things you've seen in the last year, kind of locations, duration, any kind of information. So we can document that, make sure our consultants get that information, and that it's reflected and considered in the overall study. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
On this slide that you have up,
Yeah.
the dark blue lines, is that the actual kind of core of the rivers that are
Yeah.
feeding the ponds?
Yeah.
So that theoretically, there's a dam at Manchaug Pond, there's a dam at Stevens, there's a dam at Tucker.
Yes.
Manchaug Pond's been there for thousands of years, so even without a dam, there's a pond there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was bigger because of the dam. If there was no dam at Tucker or Stevens, it would just be a river? What would be there?
That would be
That's great.
Freestones.
I think.
When it was an old cow pasture back in the day.
Yeah, we'll revert to it.
Yeah.
So the dark blue is the actual path of where the deepest part is, where the actual river runs?
Where the deepest part is, yes.
Okay.
Of course. So, yeah, some parts of Manchaug Pond, I think are 40 feet deep. Does
Okay.
that sound about right? Whereas the dam, so there's a spot, which I brought the map, but there's a spot in Manchaug Pond here that's only 10 to 15 feet deep. And there's a spot here that's 40 feet deep. So yeah, like you said, that the lowest thing, the lowest possible drop in water level that is possible at Manchaug Pond is 15 feet, which would leave 30 feet in the pond. Yeah, it is kind of like just a hole.
Yeah.
All right, so how deep are Tucker and Stevens?
Stevens, we didn't have good bathymetry data on, I think Stevens from what I remember.
Average is 10 feet,
10 feet,
10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
The deepest is down towards the dams, perhaps about 20.
20 feet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And Tucker, I know that, I think Tucker's about 20 feet at its deepest point.
Right, so you see a little bit of what happens when a dam, whether it's formal or made by the neighborhood, is placed along a steering thread. You see that with Woodbury Pond, just past the shopping center on Boston Road on the right. You have Woodbury Pond, and that was dammed informally. It was never a formal dam installed by the town or anybody else a long time ago, because that was an ice pond. Woodbury Pond was always a historic ice pond. Anybody who knows the history in that part of town knows there was an ice house right across the street from the pond. So it was dammed up a long time ago to make that an ice pond. They cut ice, put it in the ice house, and it was only a few years ago that the makeshift dam in the culvert under the road right there gave way. And the water kind of migrated out of Woodbury Pond, and you started to see what happens when you take something that was a part of a river process that was dammed up and formed this pond over time, and you just take out that artificial impoundment, and then you start to revert to the old riverbed situation, unless of course somebody has altered that riverbed over time, so these areas would start to look like the Woodbury Pond area does when the water is low. We've also seen some of these dam removals and improvements on the Merrill Pond system off West Sutton Road. We've had at least 2 dam removals out there. Those are state fish hatchery properties off West Sutton Road. And they've removed at least 2 of the dams in that system. And you can see already over time how what used to be ponded are now changing back to a wet meadow and changing the face of them. So in the village, we're unique here. If you look at the historic maps, some of which I'm happy to bring to the next meeting because frankly they're pretty awesome, and the old photographs. As most of you know, we actually had 2 ponds here. Your wide open water right down to this part of Main Street. This is actually all ponded in here, serving the back of Mill 3. And I
There
received...
still is one out there, it's like a swamp.
Yeah, it's swamp.
Yeah.
And when you look at the aerials of that swamp, you can see the old pond,
Yep.
kind of where the pond is.
Really, it was
Yeah.
It's pretty
Tucker
cool.
Lake and across the street,
Yeah.
you know, the Vita Dam, that was a dam, a big, huge dam that was wiped out by the flood.
Right, and we did have a washout.
Huh?
Do you know what flood?
Was it 38 or 40?
38.
38?
36.
Yeah, 1936 was the
Well,
dam.
a little before your time.
36, and the King family, Marion King, actually has provided us a ton of photographs that Chrissy Watkins is pulling all together of that flood. So we have a photo documentation in the village, one of the only villages that had a ton of documentation from that flood period, in this area anyways.
Has it anything been considered where King's Farm used to be, which is off of White
Yep.
Road? There used to be spring there, I mean, it flooded all over the place, I don't think it ever really, in the wintertime, everybody went.
The spring is still there.
Yeah, that would be something good to kind of indicate on the map, just so you know, because all of these things influence. Kind of water.
That runs through my hayfield.
Yes,
It-
yes.
Yeah, it never floods. I mean, it gets high sometimes, but one of the pictures was a culvert under Whiten's Road, and I've never seen it back up.
Well,
Yeah.
they used to, cattle used to go and drink all around there, you didn't have to put out troughs for it.
Yeah.
It was a natural.
Yeah, it's, Yeah, I think that's on your land now.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to know where.
Jeff Small.
Where that's from this.
So yeah, I mean, anything you know about these potential springs, water sources, anything like that, let's try to make sure we get them on the map. So, if you have more questions, if you want to ask Matt, our consultant from Lamar, any kind of questions about the science and have a chat with him, he's here. Feel free to chat with him. I'm going to move over with some of the team members over to the input tables. And we'll also circulate around. If you don't want to stick sticky dots and you just want to tell us about what you know, we're happy to document that and make sure it gets documented so this is the most thorough, accurate study that we can produce. So, if you don't have time, if you've got a sitter waiting, if you've got roast beef in the oven, make sure I have your name and your phone number back there, and just put a star next to your name. If you want me to reach out to you directly, just put a star next to your name, and I will reach out to you directly, and we'll set up an appointment or a phone call where I can get information from you to make sure it's incorporated into the study. Okay? All right. So, if you want to help us out over at the tables, let's do that. If you want me to meet with you one-on-one,